Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome back. Thanks so much again for being here with me once again. It's your host Paul, MMA After Dark. We're going to be talking UFC 325, Volkanovski versus Lopez, Part 2. We're going to be talking all the action from the main card, from start to finish. Breakdown, some analysis of the fight, what's going to be next for the fighters, and of course, implications for the future in all those respective divisions. Guys, UFC 325 in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. Overall, I felt delivered. There was a couple fights that, maybe I was expecting a little bit more out of, but overall, I was entertained from start to finish. There was some good action on the prelims and the early prelims also. Overall, I thought it was a fun evening of fights, right? But we're going to get into that. Before we get started though, guys, please like and subscribe. Doesn't cost you a thing, and it sure means a whole lot to me. Thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for joining me here. I very much appreciate it. I know you guys have options and time of how you spend your day and how you spend absorbing your content. So thanks so much for spending time with me this afternoon. Guys, UFC 325, opening fight of the main card. We're gonna do a little bit of rapid fire for the first few fights, and then I'm gonna get into like some deeper analysis of the main and co-main fights on the main card. But to kick things off, we had Quillen Salkeld against Jamie Mullarkey. Man, poor Jamie Mullarkey, man. He just can't seem to get it done. He's really been struggling quite a bit. Lately, there's been talks of, is he going to get cut? That remains to be seen. And I know, of course, he wasn't the originally scheduled opponent for Quillen Salkeld. I completely agree after this victory from Quillen Salkeld over Jamie Mullarkey. He said it in his post-fight interview. He wants somebody ranked. He wants a top 15 opponent. And guys, it is time to see really what this kid is made of, right? Looks like he's got the goods based on recent activity, recent victories. Right, he's got a complete game. We know he can grapple. We sure know he can strike. Ask Nasrat Haqparast about that, right? How he finished quarter four with that nasty head kick KO. Many people's KO of the year. Certainly was one of my top finishes of the year, right? So he's really got the goods. So it is time to see, though, to what extent he has the goods. Is he going to be a guy that's just going to maybe, break through to that top 15 and, have a respectable career? Kind of hang around most of his career in the top 15? Or is he going to continue to climb, right? Or is he going to be a guy that kind of maybe has trouble breaking through, right? That has opportunities to break through the top 15, but maybe just can't seem to crack through that next tier. That remains to be seen, guys. But as I was looking at the lightweight rankings, there's a lot of, the lightweight division is in a time of transition in some respects, right? We have new, fresh, hungry up-and-comers, and we have some of the old heads hanging around still, right? And Justin Gaethje, sure, one of the guys at the top of the heap, right? As far as some of the old guys from the previous era, still hanging around, still winning big fights, still in the title picture, right? But then you do have those young and up-and-comers still breaking through, right? Benoit Saint Denis, one of those guys. But we have to start looking at some of these guys that have been around the division quite a while and clearly, barring some sort of miracle, are probably not going to break through to title contention again, right? And so you guys know how it goes. I mean, even if you're a guy with a big name, there comes a time, okay, you got to start fighting some of these guys that maybe aren't as big of a name yet. When you're a big name, but maybe you're on a bit of a losing streak. I'm thinking about guys like a Michael Chandler or Beneil Dariush, right? Pretty big names as far as within the UFC lightweight division, right? But the guys have been struggling lately. I mean, you could even throw Dan Hooker in there, guys. I know he, before last night, he came in ranked 6th, I believe, but he's had some really mixed results, and he hasn't looked particularly good his last couple fights. So I wouldn't mind Quillen Salkeld cracking through and getting a fight in the top 15 in one of those names, right? At this point he needs a big name, but maybe one of these guys that is a big name, but maybe like career trajectory kind of turning downwards. That's how it goes, guys. It's been said on many broadcasts, many other YouTube channels, that this is how the game goes, right? Like at a certain point, these old guys get to a point in their career where, it's when the rubber meets the road. If you're going to keep hanging around, then you have to start facing some of these young, hungry, up-and-coming, even prospects sometimes, not even like contenders in the top 15. Some guys that maybe aren't even in the top 15 yet. So we need to give Quillen Salkeld a proper test. We got to see what he's made of. Can he crack through to that top 15 and secure a ranking in his next fight? Look for him to get a matchup against maybe one of those guys and see what happens. Good win for Quillen Salkill. I'm looking forward to see how the UFC books him next. Moving on, Tai Tuivasa versus Taliesin Teixeira. You know, guys, I was a little surprised with the reaction out there on social media and just on X and YouTube and just some of the general sentiments towards this fight. It made me wonder, like, okay, we know what the current landscape is right now in the UFC heavyweight division, right? I mean, we have Tom Aspinall, we have Cyril Gane, and then after that, the tier below really starts to kind of become questionable, right? I mean, these are guys that could potentially crack through to get title shots, but for the time being, I mean, it's not this ultra competitive, athletic, high caliber division right now. And on top of that, you make a matchup between Tai Tuivasa and Taliesin Teixeira. This is about what I expected. I expected more along the lines of something like a bar fight. And that's pretty much what we got. It wasn't very technical. It was sloppy. It was, no game plan. Survive. Who's going to land the big one? Who's going to wear themselves out first? But by and large, guys, that's where we're at in the UFC heavyweight division right now. But there's so much complaining online about, oh man, this is terrible. This shows where the division. It's hard to argue with that. But you kind of had to know that already coming into this fight. I mean, this is about what I expected out of these two guys. And I thought it was pretty fun. I thought it was a fun, entertaining matchup. I went in with my expectations very low as far as high caliber, very high IQ fight, ultra athletic, all those things we want, all of our matchups in the UFC to be. But from time to time, guys, it's okay to just, kick back, relax, and just watch two guys slug it out. Yeah, was it sloppy? Yeah, was it unathletic? Was it uninspiring? Was it kind of like, man, this is where we're at in the UFC heavyweight division? Yes, it was all those things. But I thought it was a good time. I didn't have an issue with it. It's about what I expected. It was very hard for me to make a pick going into this fight because, Taliesin Teixeira, he's a guy that up until last night had not seen a second round in his MMA career, I believe, right? So when you think about going in the second and third round, I mean, cardio, gas tank hadn't really been tested yet. And then we have Tai Tuivasa, who it's been well documented, hasn't always taken the training camps seriously. I don't want to say not seriously at all, but to an extent, the cardio, the conditioning, right? I mean, he's not going to win a, Mr. Olympia competition any soon. Visibly, he's not the most stout fighter, right? Certainly not like a Cyril Gane or, a Francis Ngannou or even like a Sergey Pavlovich, right? And then when we get to the third round, we see both guys hands on the hips at the same time. But you can't just help but laugh and just enjoy it. And, what can you say? I mean, what does this even mean in terms of what's next for Taliesin Teixeira? Who knows, right? Because these matchups are so wonky right now, and we keep on trying to push these guys up in the heavyweight from, contender series and guys that, if the division was a little more competitive, maybe would have spent a little more time on the regional scene, and we're just pushing these guys up. We're looking for the next big thing at heavyweight, to kind of really round out that top 10 to be a little more respectable and competitive. But we're just not there right now. So for the time being, instead of, complaining and grumping and moaning and, oh man, this division is terrible and the division should be this and that. Yeah, and I feel like one day we'll get back there at a certain point. We're not there yet. And by all accounts, we're not close. So when we get these matchups, let's just enjoy it, have a good time, right? Taliesin Teixeira essentially outlasts Tai Tuivasa. Both guys did some good damage to each other, but I mean, a gust of wind in the third round would have blew either guy over, right? Taliesin Teixeira gets the victory. He moves on to bigger and better things. Tai Tuivasa, this was bad. This was bad for him. extends his losing streak to, what was it, 6 now? 6, 7? Forgive me, 6 or 7, one of those. But it's hard to tell, right? He was a guy that was surging a few years ago, found himself right in that title mix, right? He had a really good run, right? Got all kinds of fanfare. Good for him. Good for him. Really raised his profile. Definitely probably helped out his pockets a little bit monetarily. Good for him. Well deserving. Well done. But you do have to kind of wonder, like, what is next for Ty, right? Because as it stands, the heavyweight division is so wonky and not very competitive right now. So, I mean, he could potentially hang around. I mean, it's not like there's tons of guys waiting in the wings to be, you know, pushed up and pushed through. So I doubt that he'll get cut. There was some talk, okay, is Ty going to get cut now? I don't know that he's going to get cut. I don't think that, again, the heavyweight division is stacked enough with prospects and talent to where, you know, you're going to push out a fan favorite guy like Ty, you know, to the side to replace him with who, right? Because at bare minimum, we need a guy, we need guys that are at least, you know, fan favorites and that'll bring eyeballs to the screen, right? I mean, you replace Ty with somebody else, maybe, you know, an up and coming prospect, someone against, you know, Taliesin Teixeira. This fight probably isn't even on the main card, right? So I thought it was fun. It was a nice little kind of just reprieve from having to just be ultra focused, ultra, you know, into every fight. I know so many of you, so many of the UFC hardcore fans like myself, you know, we really like to get into the breakdown of the fight, the X's and O's, the analysis. This is one where you can just kind of kick back and relax and just have a little fun. Have a little fun, right? So Taliesin Teixeira gets it done. What's that victory worth at this point? Who knows? We'll see how they match him up next. To be honest, I don't have too much care in what happens in the UFC heavyweight division right now. It just doesn't intrigue me a whole lot. So as far as what's next for either guy, I really haven't given it much thought. But we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully in coming years, the UFC heavyweight division starts to round out a little bit more, get a little more competitive, right? We start to see more guys kind of like the Aspinall type, the Cyril Gane type, the Francis Ngannou type, right? We'll see what happens. Taliesin Teixeira gets it done. We move on to our third fight of the main card, Mauricio Hufi against Rafael Fiziev. Oh my goodness, Mauricio Hufi. This one was hard for me to pick because stylistically, I mean, this kind of reminded me of like a like the Tekken video game. I mean, these guys that are just high-level strikers, violent, but very, very calculated, very technical, not just sloppy, in-your-face brawlers. Can go there if need be, but both guys are very technical, choose their spots. And this fight really, into the first round, you saw that. Both guys kind of taking their time. Fiziev was definitely getting in Hufi's face, really kind of seemed to make him uncomfortable, was landing strikes, landing some kicks, and had a really good first round. And it really did seem like Fiziev's confidence was growing and growing and growing. And Hufi, not just in the first round, but in the second round, completely fighting on his back foot against the cage. And you had to think, you go back to the fight where he fought Benoit Saint-Denis in his previous fight. I believe that was his previous fight. Benoit backed him right against the fence and got that body lock, took him down, choke. That's all she wrote. Done, right? So even though Fiziev is a totally different fighter than BSD, you had to think that Mauricio Hufi moving backwards against Fence was not going to be good, right? Not going to be good for him, because we know also that Fiziev can mix in some wrestling when he wants to. He kind of keeps that in his back pocket, but you had to think he was going to incorporate that into this fight at some point, knowing the success that BSD had against him, right? So kind of checked that first box, got him on the back foot, had him up against the fence, and for quite a bit of the fight too, did a really good job in certain spots cage cutting, really forcing Hufi to really fight on that back foot up against the cage and the fence. And then what does Mauricio Hufi do in round two? Well, actually, towards the end of the first round, he starts really popping that jab, He really started finding a home for that jab. That jab started to be money in the bank for Mauricio Hufi. And you could see at the end of round one, Fiziev was kind of starting to wear it a little bit. He had some swelling under his eye, started to, I don't want to say busted up, but you could see some visible damage on his face as where Hufi was looking, pretty fresh. And you kind of felt the tide kind of started to turn a little bit in that first round, even though Fiziev had a really, really strong opening part of the first round. You kind of felt the tide start to turn a little bit into that into the first round, going into the second round. And then Hufi, he kind of locked that in that memory bank, continued to work that jab. Fiziev kept pressing forward, kept thinking, okay, this is still my path to success. I got him against the fence. I just need to start stringing together some combos, and I'm going to start to find home for some of these things. But what does Mauricio Hufi do? He stays patient. He stays composed. He doesn't go in for the kill instantly in the opening, right at the opening of the second round. He continues to move, pop that jab, waits, and then just strikes like a rattlesnake, just out of nowhere. Blink and crack. A crack that you could hear. That crack reminded me of some of the fights in early COVID time, 2020, Apex, no crowds, right? We could really hear those punches and cracks and leg kicks and everything, right? Man, when he cracked Fiziev, you could hear that pop throughout that whole arena. I heard it on my TV screen, and you could hear it on the instant replay. Man, that was nasty. And credit to Fiziev, man, because most guys, even most guys in the top 15, that's putting him out instantly. He survives a little bit, very wobbled, falls down. Mauricio Hufi follows up with strikes. Fiziev tries to recover and get up, and really just kind of falls over again on his back against the fence. Mauricio Hufi follows up with strikes. That's all she wrote. Very, very, very impressive and redemptive win for Mauricio Hufi. Very, very, very impressive, because his last fight against BSD, you started to have some questions about him, about where his career trajectory was really gonna go, right? Is this just gonna be a guy that's gonna be an entertaining fight? It's really matchup dependent, and the time will tell. A lot of these things still remain to be seen also, but a win over Fiziev and a win where you outstruck him, beat him at his own game, was patient, waited for that right opportunity, cracked him, doesn't get overexcited, stays calm, stays patient, even when he's just got him dead to rights. He waits and waits for that right opportunity to follow up and finish him with strikes on the ground. And that was it. Very impressive from Hufi. For Fiziev, this was a bad loss. Not because Hufi is a bad opponent, because he's not, but he had the recent win against Ignacio Bahamondes, but then also previously the two losses to Justin Gaethje, and then I know the loss against Gamrot was the result of, I think it was a knee injury, but his career has taken a turn somewhat downward recently. And he's one of those guys that you're just kind of puzzled by. It's like he's got all the goods, right? He almost kind of reminds me of like a lightweight Petr Yan, right? I wouldn't say he's got as deep of a bag as Petr Yan does. I mean, for my money, I think Petr Yan probably has the deepest bag in the UFC, and that's just me. But he's one of these guys that just is very, very technical, but violent, powerful, has offense pretty much anywhere he wants. Not a big submission guy, but he's a guy that can take to the ground if need be. He's a guy that feels comfortable everywhere. There's nowhere where this guy doesn't feel comfortable, right? And he's got all the goods, but when it comes time to kind of break through to that next tier, and now facing Hufi, who I believe was ranked 14, he's starting to fight guys that are kind of a tier outside of that kind of tier he's been kind of hanging around in lately. And he gets this very, very brutal loss. This was not a loss that, went the full distance and it was back and forth and both guys busted up and bloody and, split decision. Oh man, it could have gone either way. Respect to both guys. They're, one of those ones where it's like, okay, no matter who wins and loses, both their profiles and stock kind of get elevated still. This was a bad loss for him. Now, he has Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a while back he was toying with the idea of moving down to featherweight. I could be thinking of someone else, but I feel like he said that in an interview or that I read that somewhere, that he was kind of playing with the idea of dropping down a weight class and going to featherweight. Now, I don't know that it's going to get much easier at featherweight for him either. Featherweight is full of killers right now. I mean, point in case, top fight at the top of the bill, right? Volk and Lopez, and we got killers underneath it waiting to break through. So I don't know if even dropping down to featherweight is the answer. He's made it very clear in his time at lightweight, he wanted the belt, right? He has championship aspirations on his mind. He was not a guy that said, I'm just here for a good time. I'm going to be in some fun fights and just kind of hang around the top 15 of the division and then call it a career at some point. He's made it very clear he has always wanted that belt. Now I believe he's 32, and now with this loss to Hoofy at 14, is it impossible? No, it's not. But he's got a long road back before he's even in the mix of, in the conversation of title contention at lightweight. Now, just off the top of my head, dropping to featherweight, maybe fresh coat of paint at featherweight, gets 2 impressive wins, depending upon the matchup. Maybe an easier path to the title. But then you have to ask yourself about that weight cut. Now, while he is not the biggest lightweight, he's pretty stout. Not a lot of body fat, for my estimation. Now, I'm not a coach or a nutritionist or a trainer. Only he knows, if that weight cut is something that is truly manageable for him and something he could sustain. Also at 32, he's not getting any younger. We'll wait. We're gonna wait and see. But man, huge from Risu Hoofy. Man, that's one we're gonna be still remembering that finish much later in the year. Very impressive stuff from Hoofy. I think it was a good call to. He didn't completely leave the fighting nerds, but he did this camp in Australia, got some different looks, got some different training partners, and just kind of expanded his toolkit a little bit more, and paid off dividends, right? I mean, just complete 180 from what we saw in the BSD fight, in some respects. So, Marisa Hoofy, only 29. I mean, you look at him, he looks a little bit older than that. 29, career just getting started. So if he continues to really round out his game, I'm really excited to see how far he can move up the chain at lightweight. Going to be tough. We know, I don't have to list all the killers at lightweight that are hanging around right now, right? But man, you think about all the potential possible matchups for him. Good stuff. Good stuff from Hoofy. Well done. He gets the victory. He moves on to bigger and better things, moving up those lightweight rankings. All right, guys. Our co-main event, Benoit Saint-Denis against Dan the Hangman Hooker. I went into this fight somewhat comfortably picking BSD because of the grappling component. But then I also had some second thoughts because we have seen Dan, particularly in the Gamrot fight, kind of sustain enough defense against the takedown, against the grappling and the wrestling, to where he kept it on the feet enough to where he was able to edge out a split decision victory against Gamrot. Very close fight though, right? So Dan has kind of made a recent name of being able to out-tough guys, outlast guys enough to kind of surge later in the fights and kind of almost steal victories, right? But that style is really hard to sustain. It just is, especially in winning fashion. If that's going to be your game plan every time, especially against grapplers and wrestlers, I'll outlast them. I will have enough sustained defense against the takedown to keep it up on the feet. I will have enough defense that I can surge late and make a comeback on the feet, right? If that is your game plan every time, that's hard to emulate over and over and over again. Now, he did it against Gamrot. He did it against Jalen Turner. Not so much with the takedown, but he suffered an early. He survived an early onslaught of pretty nasty strikes from Jalen Turner, surged late at the end, got that victory also. But The biggest thing I've always said about Dan Hooker is that he is most successful against guys that are very technical, very calculated, very measured, take the time to kind of get their reads, kind of feel each other out, almost kind of, I don't want to say take the first round off, but guys that are just very calculated and measured, guys that aren't going to just get in your face, blitz you, make it ugly, make it sloppy. He struggles with guys like that. He struggled very much like that against, I can point to several fights as evidence to that. You look at the Michael Chandler fight. What does he do? He wastes no time. He blitzes him, gets right in his face, starts throwing bombs, boom, knocks him out. He drops down to featherweight and fights Arnold Allen. How did Arnold Allen finish him? Not by, technical, sticking and moving. At a certain point, he blitzed him, got right in his face, just started throwing nasty combinations, not the most technical stuff, but just dirty boxing in your face, in the pocket, boom, 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 and he finished Dan on the feet. And now we have, and Dan has also struggled against just grapplers in general. Islam Makhachev, to be fair, Islam's going to do what he did to Dan to most guys. That's just how good he is, right? And then he struggled most recently against Arman Sarukian, right? With the wrestling and the grappling, getting finished on the ground. But BSD is kind of a weird combination of both of these things, right? He's a guy that's going to march forward. He's not the most technical striker. He doesn't mind getting hit, but he will get in your face and make it ugly and make it sloppy. And he's also not the most technical grappler and wrestler. He doesn't really string together things necessarily how you would, coach somebody to do on a technical level. But again, Dan struggles with guys like that. Which is funny because when he fought Dustin Poirier, that was one of his better striking performances in a losing fashion. But in round 1 and 2, he was hanging right there with Poirier. But Poirier is not one of these guys that's going to, get in your face constantly, make it ugly. He's going to remain calm, composed, technical, stick and move, right? Be patient, take his time, choosing the moments where he really engages in the power shots, okay? And that's how Dan fights also. And he does his best work when he's facing an opponent similar to that. Guys that make it ugly, guys that get in his face, guys that are just constant pressure, not very technical, but just kind of make it ugly. He struggles with guys like that. He has for a long time. And so what does BSD do? He survives the early teep kicks and body kicks from Dan Hooker. And there was a lot of talk in the broadcast. Oh man, BSD's in trouble. I didn't necessarily think he was in trouble. Clearly, those kicks were making him uncomfortable in that first round. But guys, if you really thought that at that moment he was on the verge of getting finished, I encourage you to go back and watch I believe it was his debut against Eliseu Deleski dos Santos up at 170. That's one of the worst beatings I've ever seen any man take in the UFC. And he survived all 3 rounds of it. Some nasty, everything, ground and pound, strikes to the head, kicks to the body, leg kicks, everything you can think of. Eliseu Deleski dos Santos was landing whatever he wanted on BSD, pretty much from the mid-ish second round all the way to the 3rd round. And that was one of the worst beatings I've ever seen a man take. And he survived it. So, as I was listening to the broadcast, they go, oh man, BSD, he might be in trouble, he's hurt. I wasn't there yet. I thought that as long as BSD just kind of started to just kind of circle, collect himself, not do something wild and careless, I felt pretty confident that he was going to recover and piece together some meaningful offense. And that's exactly what he did. Because to beat BSD, you got to either have nuclear power in your hands, like when Dustin Poirier flatlined him. We know what Poirier, now retired of course, but carried in those hands, right? I mean, he carries Armageddon in those hands, right? Or you got to just beat him at his own game, right? Like what Moicano did, right? Ground and pound, out grappled him, right? Just a little bit higher level, and some questionable decisions from BSD in that fight. But he survives. He survives the early kicks. And then, you have to also point to some questionable decisions by Hooker, right? He made some decisions to engage with him a little bit in the grappling, attempting some body locks when, I couldn't really hear the direction from his corner, but it would have really surprised me if that was the direction coming from, Eugene Behrman and company from his corner, right? The very, very high-level coach in Eugene Behrman. I think we all know that that's not Dan Hooker's game. And so what does he do? He gets taken down in that first round, does survive. Correct me if I'm wrong. I do believe that he did get taken down. I know for sure in that second round that was how he got finished. I'm going to go back to the UFC stats here per round. Let's see here. Let's see. So Benoit does some good work at the end of that first round, and then in the second round, he just continued to he put a beating on Dan Hooker. I mean, I'm looking at the total strike. So let's break down some of the numbers here. Okay, round one, the numbers would indicate that it was actually pretty competitive, right? Round one, significant strikes. Dan Hooker, 26 of 41, 63% clip. Benoit Saint Denis, 35 of 46 at a 76% clip. Dan Hooker did some 8 of 12 strikes to the body. And then Benoit also did some good work, 11 of 11. And then we have clinch strikes, Benoit 8 of 8, and then ground strikes, 11 of 11 from Benoit. So more than likely a round for Benoit, but a pretty overall competitive, more so competitive than the second round. Speaking of the first round, right? But at the end of that, you really saw Benoit kind of start to kind of figure it out, right? And then, we get into round two, and these numbers, I mean, oh my goodness. I mean, in round two, BSD just beat Dan Hooker. He just worked him like an after-school job. I mean, and these numbers will indicate that also. Dan Hooker, 4 total significant strikes in round two. Listen to this from Benoit Saint Denis, 62 of 81 significant strikes to Dan Hooker's 4. 59 of those were strikes to the head, 3 to the body, no leg strikes, and then 56 of those were on the ground. That came as Dan tried to get a body lock, take him to the ground, but what does Benoit do? He reverses it, traps that arm, which was just nice. I mean, I didn't remember Benoit being as, I don't want to say as athletic, because I've always thought him to be athletic, but showed a really good understanding of weight management on the ground. You don't see a lot of guys get full mounted anymore, heavyweight being the exception, and just being able to sustain it, sustain the full mount position. Guys are so high level now that they found answers for that, right? And you would think, I mean, Dan Hooker, top 10 guy, I mean, we would expect more of him than that, than to be able to be trapped in full mount, but BSD kept him there, full mount, and then with the arm trap just started landing elbows, landing head strikes, and then would adjust, attempt chokes, attempted arm triangles, and then would just readjust. Really, really strong understanding of his weight distribution and balance and how to keep Dan Hooker in those really compromising positions. And he just continued to rain down blows until eventually, in my opinion, I believe it was Herb Dean, let it go a little bit longer than he probably should have because, again, 59 of 78 shots to the head in a round that didn't even go the full distance. And many of those shots were not blocked, were uncontested. So, big win for BSD, statement win for Benoit Saint Denis. And I know guys have been kind of talking down on the call out. But you know what though? Hey, you know what? Good for him, because now Benoit Saint Denis is now on a 4-fight winning streak since suffering that bad loss to Moicano. That was back in 2024. He rebounds by beating Kyle Prepolek with the arm triangle. And then after that, he responds by just running through Mauricio Hufi with that rear naked choke pretty early in the fight. Did really well against that. I mean, and with the recent activity we saw from Hufi, that's a fight that has aged incredibly well. And then he gets the quick, very quick knockout of Beneil Dariush in the first round just back in November, right before Thanksgiving. And then he follows it up with a dominating performance of Dan the Hangman Hooker. And so you are BSD on a very impressive 4-fight winning streak. So of course he's going to swing for the fences in the call out. What did he say he wants? He said he wants undisputed or BMF. He said the only names I want to talk about, Gaethje, Holloway, Oliveira, Topuria, and then he also threw an Arman in there. I loved it. I love that he's shooting for that. This is the time. You're on a 4-fight win streak like this, and you really didn't face a whole lot of adversity in those fights, right? Now, Kyle Prepolek, I mean, you know, is that a fight that's aged well? I mean, not the best, right? The Hufi fight is aged incredibly well. The Dariush fight, I know he's getting a little bit up there in age, but he's a guy that when we seem to have counted him out, always responds, right? We counted him out against Moicano, got the job done, right? So that win, I feel, has aged well, and then he puts a beating on Dan Hooker. Now, granted, Dan Hooker coming off that pretty bad loss against Sarukian, but you know, Sarukian's #1 contender. So at this point, he's got to swing for the fences. I loved it. And I loved that it was aggressive. It was respectable, but aggressive. He said, hey, listen, no disrespect to the guys in front of me, but this is what I want. And he said, hey, you know, Arman Sarukian, you can get it too. I'm going to take your #1 spot. I love it. I love it. Now, with respect to the call out, I don't know that I would necessarily favor BSD in any of those matchups. I don't know, gun to my head, if I'd pick him to win any of those matchups. I mean, those are just the cream of the crop when it comes to the lightweight division, right? But now, with beating Dan Hooker at, who was ranked 6, I believe, he has now inserted himself into that picture. Not necessarily going to be up next for like a title shot, but now with the 4-fight winning streak and the wins he's done and the fashion he has done it in, and not taking a ton of damage, right? We used to call BSD, oh man, he's a crash dummy. He's, you know, just stationary as can be. I would see memes as, BSD's defense, and it would have, you know, the training dummy, right? The mold of, you know, the guy that, you know, guys use, you know, to box. You know, it's just stationary, right? He has made some nice adjustments because you kind of had to worry for BSD. With some of the damage he was taking, right? I mean, he was just on a trajectory for some very early CTE for a guy that's how old is BSD? Does it even say on here? He was born in 95. So what is this guy, 30 years old? I mean, come on. He had to make some adjustments. He did, and he is reaping the rewards of it. I love the call-outs. I hope that he gets one of them. Would I favor him in any of those? Off the top of my head, I probably wouldn't, but just another fun addition you could throw into that mix now, right? Which is kind of cool because, you know, if Dan Hooker wins, you know, he kind of remains in that mix still, but like, I think he's kind of hit his ceiling. And in fairness, BSD might have hit his ceiling too, but we still don't know that yet, right? And I want to see what he's made of. I want to see what happens now when he tries to crack through that next tier of fighters. Great win from BSD. Fun fight. Very entertaining. Bloody War. The God of War gets it done. Hats off to BSD. Guys, we're going to wrap up with the main event of the evening. Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez, Part 2. In my mind, the most underwhelming fight of the evening, unfortunately. this fight, okay, let's say that you take out any indications of the name of the events as far as like UFC 325 and UFC. I don't remember what event it was when they last fought, right? It was the I don't know. But let's say you just are playing both fights on the screen, right? Two different TVs, both fights going at the same time. There is not a whole lot to point out that would indicate the difference between like, oh yeah, that's part one, that's part two. This fight was incredibly frustrating to watch. Now, I am very impressed with Volk's sustained championship caliber abilities at 37 now, still holding the title, right? Only guy to dethrone him was the great and amazing Ilia Topuria, right? Not counting the move up to lightweight, obviously, where he lost to Islam, right? But I'm talking about at featherweight. Volk looks as good as ever. He has continued to stick to his same game plan. He knows what he is, he knows what works, and he really hasn't lost much of a step, even at 37. It was well documented in the first fight, the issues that Diego Lopez was having with Volk, right? The biggest thing, it's been said over and over on a million different channels, during the broadcast, post-fight, everywhere. X, Instagram, YouTube, you name it, was Diego Lopez's inability to cut off the cage and just continuing to let Volk lead the dance, circle, stick and move, pick his shots, choosing the moments to engage in the heavier striking exchanges, getting out quickly. It was, I don't want to say a carbon copy of the first fight, but there wasn't much difference. And now we have this question is like, I hate to even say like, was this a waste of everybody's time? Was this a waste of Volk's time? Now at 37? To have this immediate rematch? And guys, I love Diego Lopez. I'm a huge fan. I was rooting for Diego Lopez. So you can imagine my frustration when I just see him trying to implement the same game plan, no indication that he learned anything from that first fight. Were there some moments where he maybe did a little bit better of cutting off the cage? Yeah, maybe you could point to some. And also he wasn't probably winging his shots as much as he was in that first fight. But you have to question the preparation. You have to question the training camp. You have to question the game plan. You have to question his coaches. At what point in the training camp did you look back at that first fight and feel like you did not need to address, okay, the lack of cage cutting in that first fight? It is mind-boggling to me. Now, in fairness, easier said than done when you're fighting a guy the caliber of Alexander Volkanovski. But I didn't see any major improvements or indication that he did any type of new game planning at all. And this is not just an issue with Diego Lopez. This is an issue within that whole camp. Alexa Grasso had the same problem when she fought Natalia Silva. If you remember that fight, what does Natalia Silva do? She circles and circles and circles and is salsa dancing and kicking and throwing strikes and just sticking and moving, avoiding damage, choosing when to engage. Very similar to how Volk just fought Diego Lopez, with obviously some differences. But it is so frustrating because Diego Lopez is one of the best in the featherweight division. And he has got such a deep bag, and we have forgotten that. We saw glimpses of it a little bit more in this fight than we did in the first fight. I did like that I didn't like that it came in the 5th round, but that at least Diego tried to give him some other looks on the ground with the Kimura attempt and the arm bar attempt. Now, of course, I mean, come on. Is Alexander Volkanovski going to get finished with an arm bar? I mean, show me the odds on that pre-fight. Alexander Volkanovski getting finished by armbar. I mean, plus plus 10,000. I mean, what are we talking about? But when you're fighting a guy like Volk, I said it in my post-fight video the first time they fought, you have to leave no stone unturned. You got to show him everything you got. And I thought that there were some times when I thought the resistance to go to the ground was a little bit questionable. Okay, Diego Lopez has offense everywhere, evidenced in the Movsar-Evloev fight, in a losing effort, to be fair, but there was nowhere that fight went where Diego Lopez wasn't trying to show some sort of offense, and a lot of it was working. Now, it wasn't quite enough for him to get the victory, but no matter where the fight went, Diego Lopez was attacking. He was attacking him with offense on the feet and on the ground, in scrambles, in transitions, against a very, very, very high level, and in my mind, right there, if not, well, maybe right under Volkanovski in terms of skill and ability in Movsar-Evloev. That fight was pretty close in some rounds. I just haven't seen that guy since. He has gotten so knockout happy and headhunting happy that I question his fight IQ in a sense of he is making it more complicated than he needs to. And when it comes time to put the foot on the gas and attack and cut the cage and make some meaningful adjustments, when he has complete control over it, he just follows suit. He just continues to try to follow and follow and follow and follow. And I really question this game plan and the preparation from Diego Lopez. I love Diego Lopez. He's one of my favorite fighters. I love him. I became an instant fan of his after that Evloev fight. I couldn't wait to see him fight next. But he got really knockout happy and getting these early finishes. You know, he did against Gavin Tucker and Pat Sabatini and Yusuf and even recently against the Silva fight, right? Getting pieced up on the feet, lands that elbow, great comeback win, respect to him. But I said it in my previous video right after they fought the first time. And this is even more frustrating to say when he got a second crack at it. He got a second crack at an undisputed championship title at featherweight. And you essentially have the same game plan. I mean, your game plan is essentially, well, I hope I get lucky and land something big. While Volk is moving away. But what does Volk do? Hey, man, I could do this all night. You want to keep following me? Fine. I'll keep sticking and moving, chopping the leg, sticking my jab, and then when I choose to, I'm going to engage in the heavy exchanges. Now, Diego did have some moments here and there. He did drop him, and I think it was I don't even remember now. Was it the third round where he got that quick knockdown? Volk able to recover very quickly. Quickly enough to where Lopez couldn't really follow up with anything. Let's see. Significant strikes. Yeah, it looks like that was in either the third or the fourth round where he got that knockdown. The whole fight seemed like one big long round. I mean, there wasn't much distinction between round by round, right? Now, scorecards weren't really a factor in this one. Clearly, Volk won. I mean, you could make the argument where, like, how close was it? Was the loss, right? Was it clean sweep for Volk, 50-45? That wasn't necessarily my scorecard. I would have given Diego, if memory serves, he had a pretty good round two, but again, kind of edged it out, right? Maybe he had the bigger moments, but, I don't know. But it's hard to make an argument that this fight was close from round 1 to round 5, right, in totality, because it really wasn't. Volk stuck to his game plan, stick and move, very calculated when he got in those wild exchanges with him, and did good damage. Knocked Lopez down himself, right? Didn't panic when Diego kind of got him in some of those submission attempts. He attempted a Kimura, he attempted an armbar, but what does Volk do? He stacks him. He remains calm. There is nowhere that you can take Volk to where he doesn't feel like he has an answer, right? You can throw a submission attempt on him. Brian Ortega with the when he almost finished him. Well, I mean, it looked like he almost finished him, but what does he do? He remains calm, composed, and he just finds a way. He finds answers. He finds ways to continue to keep the fight going and continue to end up in dominant positions. Huge win for Volk in a sense that he shows that he's still got it at 37 and he hasn't lost a step. There was no indications that it's like, ooh, okay, like he won, but you could see him kind of take a step back a little bit because of the age. I didn't see any of that. So it kind of is hard to now determine when we are going to see that drop off, or do we see that drop off? Does he, get another title fight and win and just kind of ride off into the sunset? Time will tell. But this issue with Lopez's inability to cut off the cage, this isn't just going to stop at Volk. Let's say that they book him against a Lerone Murphy next, right? Lerone Murphy can follow that same game plan and stick and move and circle and circle and circle. And yeah, could Diego catch him with something? Sure. But Lerone is a high enough level fighter, pretty good fight IQ to where, you think Lerone Murphy's watching that fight thinking like, oh man, I got to find some answers for Lopez, man. I don't know if I... Come on. They gave me this guy next. Watch what I do. I'm going to do that and then some. I got something for him. Okay? He thinks he's just going to, follow me and land something. Nah, I'll dance around him all night doing what I want to him. So as much as I just want to look forward to the next Lopez fight, now he's in this top 5. He's got to make some adjustments, because if he fights these guys that are technical, that can stick and move and float around the ring, he is going to struggle against guys like that. He is absolutely going to. Now, let's talk about really quick what's next for both guys. I think at this point, we do have to do the Movsar fight. We have to see. We really do have to see at this point if Movsar is really of that caliber. Championship. Can he dethrone Volk, right? I think it's only fair that he gets the next shot. And Volk said as much. He said, hey, give me Lerone, give me Movsar, both of those, good with, right? So whether it's Lerone or Movsar, I'd be good with either of them. I am intrigued on a skill level because, guys, Movsar and Volk are some of the most skilled fighters in the UFC. Now, I know Movsar's taken a lot of heat from being boring and, he can't get finishes. All that is true. He is by far, from my favorite fighter. But you cannot deny his ability and skill level is high level. To out-grapple and out-wrestle Aljamain Sterling for 3 rounds and come out in a winning fashion, very impressive. To survive some of the positions that Diego Lopez had him in and come out in a winning fashion, very impressive. Okay, so now it's time to see skill for skill, high-level guys. I'm intrigued by that. Is it going to be a technical fight? It probably is. Is it going to be one of these guys or one of these fights that's going to be blood and guts, all-out war? Probably not so much, but you can't deny it's a hardcore fan's delight. From a skill perspective, I can't wait to see them face off. For Diego, the time has come. The time has come now, and the timing is perfect. Book him against Yair Rodriguez, because I will never forget that press conference where they were going back and forth and jawing and yapping and doing all the finger pointing and goodness, if I had $1 for every time one of them pointed their fingers at each other in that press conference, every time they wagged a finger, I'd be swimming in it right now. The time is now. These are two guys with bad blood. These are two guys that have a lot of pride in their countries. And both of them kind of feel like they are the respective representative in the featherweight division for their countries, right? And both the guys seem to culturally kind of have an issue with each other. There was a lot of smack talk in Spanish, going back and forth, and some really disrespectful things being said. Okay, those don't come around very often anymore. Two guys that really, 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 truly dislike each other. The time is now, and it's perfect. I was kind of surprised to still see Yair Rodriguez, I think, still ranked third, I believe. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but he's still in the top 5, which was kind of a surprise to me. His last win was against Patricio Pitbull. Respectable win, cool. But the time is now. That fight will bring a lot of eyeballs and attention. And stylistically, it's a pretty fun fight too, right? And you cannot deny, fight week would be insane with the interviews and the press conference. Oh man, I sign me up for that, guys. Sign me up for Yair against Lopez. That's one we got to see. We just have to see it, right? And it's a good indication too of who's coming and who's going. Now, whoever loses that fight potentially is not out of the picture in particular, but man, if Yair can beat Lopez, he's right back in there again. Somehow he still is, right? And if Lopez beats Yair, well then he's shown that, hey, you know what? I'm still here. I'm still hanging around in this top 5. Don't count me out. Hey, give me the loser of whoever wins or whoever loses the championship fight. Whoever Volk fights next, the loser in that affair, right? Give me that guy, or give me another guy in the top 5, whoever. Okay, so it's a perfect time to make that fight, and so I very much want to see it. But the last thing I want to say though is, I mean, in a lot of the post-fight interviews and press conferences and breakdowns, the focus seems to have been more on the mistakes and the lack of preparation that Diego Lopez made in this fight, which is true. It really is hard to ignore how similar the game plan was from the first fight to the second fight. But that is not the message I want to leave with this evening from this championship fight. We got to tip our hat to Volk. Man, he had a rough run when trying to become double champ, moving up, fought Islam. Close the first time, some rounds, right? But then he gets finished with the head kick by Islam, goes back down to featherweight, just gets completely flatlined and put out by Ilia Topuria. And then, you kind of had to wonder, like, ooh, man, like, is this it for him, right? Volk was starting to allude to that in some of his press conferences. Man, like, if I don't do this, I don't know what's next for me. And he just did not seem to be in a good place, both physically and emotionally. But what does he do? He hangs around. He continues to build himself back up. He retains the belt, or he gets his belt back, something that is very, very, very hard to do. Let alone a guy that first has taken the damage that he did previously and at his age gets the belt back, and now, guys, has an outstanding repeat performance after very, very two devastating knockout losses from Islam and Ilia. Gets it back against a very hungry game, and regardless of game plan, you cannot deny, very, very dangerous and capable Diego Lopez does it twice. And if you look in totality from we have 10 rounds of work now, guys. This matchup wasn't very competitive. Volk left no question that he is by far the superior fighter of the two, and that there are levels. Now, Lopez still has time. He still has a lot of time in his career. I have a feeling he's going to get back in the title picture someday. Maybe after Volk has, decided to retire and hang it up, right? But guys, let's appreciate Volk, because if there's been some talk, okay, who is the featherweight GOAT, right? Is it Aldo? Is it Max? Is it Volk? Who is it, right? you cannot deny that. I mean, if you're not picking him as the GOAT, I mean, he's 1 or 1A or 1B, however you want to look at it, man. But I mean, if he's your featherweight GOAT, I mean, yeah, there's some other names you could throw in the mix, but it's hard to make an argument, like a strong argument against it. It's almost like who has the slightly better resume and what more stock do you put into certain things, right? But anyone's picking Volk as their featherweight GOAT, it's hard to argue with. Hard to argue with. Let's appreciate him while he's here. One of the good guys in the sport, a guy that always comes prepared. When is the last time we've seen Volk lay an egg or come in unprepared, right? I mean, respect to Ilia Topuria, he finished him in that fight, but I mean, when was the last time in his long reign that we've really seen him like lay an egg? Respect to Volk, outstanding performance. That's the message I want to leave in tonight. I can't wait to see him. I really hope they book the Mobstar fight because I think stylistically, skill level, that's where top 2 guys are right now. We'll see what happens. Thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe. MMA After Dark. Thanks for hanging with me this evening. I'll see you next time. Have a great week. We'll see you next weekend. Have a great week. Take care. Like and subscribe.